Hello. I want to tell you about a meeting that happened in 2004. Not the kind of meeting you read about in the press releases, a meeting where we almost made the biggest mistake in Apple's history. We were sitting in a conference room at Apple's headquarters in Cupertino. The topic was mobile phones. Motorola had just approached us with a proposal. They wanted to put iTunes on their new phone, the ROKR. It seemed like a logical partnership. Motorola was one of the biggest phone manufacturers in the world. They had the distribution, the carrier relationships, the manufacturing expertise. We had iTunes and the iPod, put them together, and we'd have a music phone. Everyone around the table thought it was a great idea. Our business development team had done the analysis. The projections looked good. Motorola would handle the hard parts, the radio, the carriers, the FCC approvals. We'd just license iTunes to them, low risk, high reward. Even some of my closest advisors were nodding along. But I kept thinking about something else. I kept thinking about what happened with Microsoft and the PC industry in the 1980s. Apple had built the Macintosh, the best personal computer in the world, but we kept it closed. We controlled the hardware, the software, the user experience. Microsoft, meanwhile, licensed Windows to anyone who would use it. Dell, Compaq, HP, IBM, they all shipped Windows PCS, and Microsoft won. They didn't win because Windows was better. It wasn't. They won because they understood distribution and partnerships. So sitting in that room, watching everyone get excited about the Motorola deal, I felt this pressure. The pressure to do the smart business move, to partner with the established player, to not try to do everything ourselves. We did the deal with Motorola. The ROKR E1 launched in September 2005. It was a disaster. Motorola had designed a phone that could barely hold 100 songs. The interface was clunky. Syncing with iTunes was painful. The phone itself was ugly. It looked like every other Motorola phone, just with an iTunes logo slapped on it. Phil Schiller, our marketing chief, came to my office after the launch reviews came in. "Steve," he said, "we can't put our name on products like this. This isn't an Apple product. This is a Motorola phone with iTunes badly bolted onto it." He was right, but more importantly, the ROKR revealed something crucial. Nobody, not Motorola, not Nokia, not any phone manufacturer, was going to build the phone we envisioned. They were all thinking about phones the way they'd always thought about phones. A phone was a device for making calls, maybe sending texts, and now, grudgingly, playing some music. They were trying to add features to phones. I called a meeting with John Rubinstein, our head of hardware, Tony Fidel, who had led the iPod team, and Joni Ive, our design chief. "We're going to make a phone," I told them. They looked at me like I was crazy. John spoke first. "Steve, do you know what you're asking? The mobile phone industry is completely locked down. You can't just make a phone. You need carrier approval for everything, every feature, every software update. They control the entire experience." Tony jumped in. "And the technology isn't there. To make the kind of phone you're talking about, one that can really browse the web, handle email, play music, we'd need processing power and battery life that doesn't exist in a phone form factor." Johnny was quieter. "The interface," he said. "Every phone has either a keyboard or a numeric pad. If we're going to do this right, we need a completely new interaction model." I looked at them and said, "Do you remember what everyone said when we launched the iPod in 2001? They said, nobody would pay $399 for an MP3 player when you could get one for $99. They said the market was already crowded with Rio and Creative and everyone else. They were tracking what the competitors were doing, trying to figure out how to beat them at their own game. But we didn't do that. We didn't look at what Rio was doing and try to make a better Rio. We asked, what do people really want? They want their entire music library in their pocket. They want it to be beautiful. They want it to just work. And we built that, even though nobody believed it would sell." I pulled out my Motorola ROKR. "This," I said, holding it up, "is what happens when you try to beat the competition at their own game." Motorola looked at Nokia and Samsung and asked, how do we compete with them? So they made a phone that holds 100 songs. Why? Because their competitors' phones held 50. That's not innovation, that's imitation. Then I pulled out my iPod. This is what happens when you ask what people really want. Nobody wanted 100 songs in their phone. They wanted their entire music library, 5,000 songs, 10,000 songs. We gave them that. The room was quiet. Then I said, "So here's the question. When we make a phone, not if, when, are we going to ask how to compete with Motorola and Nokia? Or are we going to ask what people really want from a phone?" Joni leaned forward. "Well, what do they want?" "They want their whole life in their pocket," I said. "Not just music, everything. Their photos, their email, the web, real web, not the stripped down mobile web that telecom companies think is good enough. They want a device that's three things, a phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator, and they want it to be so easy that they don't need a manual." Tony was shaking his head, but he was smiling. You're talking about building a computer, a real computer in a phone form factor. Yes, I said, and we're the only company that can do it because we control the whole experience, the hardware, the software, the services. HP can't do this. They just make the box. Microsoft can't do this. They just make the software. The phone carriers can't do this. They don't understand user experience. We're the only ones who can build the whole widget. Over the next 2.5 years, we worked on the iPhone in secret. We built 3 different prototypes before we found the right approach. The first was based on the iPod. It had a click wheel. It was terrible. The second had a keyboard like a BlackBerry. Also terrible. The third was the one Joni had been pushing for, a large touchscreen with no physical keyboard at all. The technical challenges were enormous. We had to invent multi-touch technology that actually worked. We partnered with Corning to create a new type of glass. They called it Gorilla Glass. That was strong enough to not scratch in your pocket but could still register touch. We had to miniaturize OS X, our desktop operating system, to run on a mobile processor. We had to negotiate with AT&T to get unprecedented control over the phone experience. No carrier apps, no carrier control over updates. On January 9th, 2007, I walked onto the stage at Macworld in San Francisco. This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years, I said. Then I told them we were launching 3 products: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. I repeated it. An iPod, a phone, an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? The audience started to laugh and cheer because they realized these weren't 3 separate devices. These are not 3 separate devices, I said. This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone. The analysts were skeptical. Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft, laughed at the iPhone on camera. $500, he said, fully subsidized with a plan? That is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard. Executives at Nokia and Motorola dismissed it. Apple doesn't know how to make phones, they said. They don't understand the carrier relationships. The market is already mature. But here's what they didn't understand. We weren't competing with them. We weren't trying to make a better Motorola ROKR or a better Nokia N95. We weren't asking, what are our competitors doing and how can we do it better? We were asking a completely different question. What do people really want? By 2010, just 3 years after launch, we had sold over 100 million iPhones. By 2015, the iPhone was generating more revenue than all of Microsoft's products combined. Today, it's the most successful product in the history of consumer electronics. But more importantly, the iPhone changed everything. It changed how people communicate, how they access information, how they navigate the world. It created entire new industries. The app economy alone is worth over $1 trillion. None of that would have happened if we had tried to compete with Nokia and Motorola on their terms. Here's what I learned from that experience, and it's the most important lesson I can share with you. When you want to have a date with a girl, are you going to send her 15 roses if you know that your rival is sending her 10 roses? If you would think so, you will be defeated on that moment. Whatever your rival does is not what matters. What does that girl really want? That's the question that changes everything. Not what is the competition doing, but what does the customer really want? Most companies never ask that question. They're too busy tracking their competitors, trying to outfeature them, trying to undercut them on price. They're sending 15 roses when everyone else is sending 10. But the companies that change the world, they're the ones who forget about the competition entirely. They're the ones who fall in love with the problem, who obsess over understanding what people truly need, even when people can't articulate it themselves. They're the ones who have the courage to build something completely different. Don't let the competition define your strategy. Don't let them dictate what you build. Ask the hard question, what does she really want? And then have the courage to build that, even if nobody else believes in it. Thank you.